If you enjoyed the chaos, explosions, and that intense retro vibe of Terminator 2D No Fate, get ready, because today I'm going to show you 10 incredible games that follow the same vibe. Nervous action, heavy gunplay, and lots of 2D style. Some go straight for arcade nostalgia, while others bring new ideas that will surprise you. So adjust your aim and let's check out this list. I'm Matthew, and the video starts now. Shadows of Steel Moons is exactly the kind of game that anyone who loved the raw and direct approach of Terminator 2D No Fate needs to put on their radar. 2D action, strong aesthetics, and a world that seems to scream war between flesh and machine on every screen. Here, you step into the shoes of a knight in a dark techno-fantasy universe, a lonely hero facing mechanical gods and monsters on a planet dominated by steel and gears, almost as if they dropped medieval fantasy into an industrial cyberpunk nightmare. The first thing that catches your eye is the visuals. It's not that clean, shiny future. It's heavy, dark steampunk, with gigantic machines and backgrounds full of twisted metal and colossal structures, which fits perfectly for those who enjoyed the destruction and apocalyptic climate of Terminator 2D. Instead of Skynet armies, you face true mechanical gods, hybrid creatures, and monsters that seem to worship these machines, giving you the feeling that you're fighting against a twisted technological religion, not just random robots. In terms of gameplay, the foundation here is a very classic action platformer. You run, jump, dodge, and attack at a fast pace, with stages built around combat and platforming precision, very much in the school of those who grew up on Contra, Castlevania, and the like. The difference is that Shadows of Steel Moons seems to focus heavily on the fantasy of the knight against the impossible. Sword strikes, special abilities, and clashes with massive bosses that dominate the screen. The kind of fights where you feel the weight of every attack you land, or miss. If you liked how Terminator 2D No Fate delivers a direct experience with no filler, Shadows of Steel Moons follows the same line of a clear proposal. It's about advancing through stages, destroying giant mechanical threats, and surviving in a hostile world, without necessarily trying to be a 30-hour Metroidvania. From the material shown, the focus is more on stage intensity and visual identity than on 1,000 parallel systems, meaning it's much more about mastering the flow of combat and platforming than getting lost in menus and skill trees. So, if you finished Terminator 2D No Fate with that craving for more 2D action in a world ravaged by metal, war, and out-of-control technology, Shadows of Steel Moons is a perfect target to watch closely. ChainStaff is that type of game that seems custom made for you if you love aggressive run-and-gun action, stylish pixel art, and 2D games that aren't afraid to be difficult. Here, you control a protagonist equipped with a transforming chain spear, which functions simultaneously as a melee weapon, a firearm, and a movement hook, all wrapped in a rock soundtrack that pushes you forward the entire time. The vibe is very much human against alien threat in a collapsing world, except instead of Terminators, you face mutants created by a cosmic infestation called star spores that turned life on Earth into giant, furious insects. What connects ChainStaff most with Terminator 2D, for those who like this style, is the very direct action platformer structure, with no stalling. Linear stages full of enemies, bullets everywhere, tense platforming sections, and huge bosses that take up half the screen. It doesn't try to be a 20-hour Metroidvania. It wants to be that modern arcade focused on challenge and mechanical mastery, just like what Terminator 2D does when it forces you to memorize patterns and learn the hard way. Only here, with much more emphasis on mobility with the hook, dash, and wave dash to traverse arenas packed with projectiles. The chain spear is the heart of the game, and is the kind of weapon that sells the concept on its own. It can transform, serve as a harpoon to pull enemies, become a hook for you to swing from hangars and ledges, and even be used as a firearm with insane upgrades. This creates that satisfying flow of technical run and gun, where you don't just shoot, you pull an enemy close, launch another into the air, fling yourself toward a platform, and cancel it all with a perfect dash, in the spirit of mastering a tool until it becomes an extension of your body. In terms of tone, ChainStaff isn't just another game with a little guy jumping on platforms. The story revolves around an Earth devastated by star spores, with all wildlife turning into uber bug monsters. And to make matters worse, an alien parasite attaches itself to the protagonist's head, which seems bizarre, but is exactly what gives him the strength to fight back. It's that type of weird sci-fi, almost B-movie that fits perfectly for those who enjoyed the desperate resistance premise of Terminator, only here seasoned with acid humor and a colorful, chaotic atmosphere. Another thing that speaks volumes to those coming from Terminator 2D is the declared focus on difficulty and modes designed for those who like to suffer in the right way. The most recent demo already lets you choose difficulty levels and try a piece of the story, and the game was clearly designed to support multiple playthroughs, with bosses, patterns, and arenas that you feel the urge to master, not just beat once and never look at again. It's that game that, in the hands of those who enjoy true arcade roots, stops being a quick campaign and becomes execution. Training, speedrunning, and a personal challenge. Exactly the loop that makes Terminator 2D stick in your head. To wrap up, ChainStaff is coming to PC and consoles, already appearing on Steam, Xbox, and PlayStation, with full controller support, DualSense vibration, and that whole indie that knows exactly what it wants to be look. If you love the feeling of being in the middle of chaos, dodging shots, pulling yourself with a hook, and blasting hordes of mutants in 2D, this is easily one of the games that anyone who fell in love with Terminator 2D No Fate needs to follow closely, try the demo, and, honestly, prepare to die a lot until you make that chain spear dance on the screen. Another space opera is that type of game that, if you loved Terminator 2D, fits right into the vein. Cinematic 2D action, heavy sci-fi violence, and an apocalyptic world where humanity passed the point of salvation long ago. The story takes place in 2297, with Earth unified under a technocratic order born from the ashes of a nuclear holocaust. And now, the human species is trapped in the crossfire of a bloody and supernatural conflict for the fate of the galaxy. It's that end-of-the-world scale that fits perfectly for those who enjoyed the war against the machines in Terminator. The gameplay follows exactly the line that Terminator 2D fans are looking for: a fast action platformer focused on gunplay, melee combat, and explosive set pieces, all in absurdly detailed pixel art. You run, slide, climb ladders, activate energy in areas, pick up weapons from the environment, and switch between machine guns, SMGs, support drones, and other toys in that cinematic Metal Slug style, where something is always happening on screen. What makes another space opera even more interesting is the atmosphere of horror and brutality mixed with action. The intro is already quite bloody, with heavy scenes making it clear that this universe is cruel. And soon after, you are thrown into a city of horrors full of enemies, blood, neon, and chaos. If Terminator 2D won you over with the feeling of fighting a losing war against machines, here the vibe is a dirty space war against supernatural and technological forces at the same time, with a much more gore-filled and adult tone. Visually, you can easily say this game has that ambition of cinematic pixel art. Huge environments, modern lighting mixed with 2D sprites, impactful animations, and cutscenes that look almost like a brutal cartoon. It's the kind of game where you pause the video just to look at the background details, the signs, the ships, the enemy designs. Perfect for those who enjoyed how Terminator 2D recreates iconic movie scenes in 2D and want to see that same care in an original universe. Another point that aligns well with the Terminator 2D audience is the focus on an intense experience, not a giant world to hold you for 40 hours. The official material itself speaks of 12 large stages, a cinematic campaign, and the possibility to play solo or in local online co-op with a friend. In other words, it's that type of game you feel was designed to be replayed, mastered, and enjoyed in sessions of pure action. Not a bloated RPG, but a modern arcade game with sci-fi movie ambitions. Another space opera is coming to PC and consoles. A demo has already been on Steam, and the community that tested it praises exactly what Terminator 2D fans are looking for: heavy combat, strong atmosphere, and that feeling of being in the middle of a 2D blockbuster full of explosions and bosses. If you finish Terminator 2D wanting more shooting, blood, decaying sci-fi, and a campaign focused on intensity, this is one of the games that most deserves to be on your watch list right now. Especially if the idea of a brutal pixel art space opera already makes your finger itch to grab the controller. If you enjoyed Terminator 2D No Fate for the sci-fi adrenaline and that climate of survival at the limit, the Red Selene is a game that deserves to go on your list immediately. It sells itself as a sci-fi horror Metroidvania, with a much more disturbing proposal focused on tension rather than heroism. The premise starts strong. The story takes place in the year 2858 and puts you in control of Aaron, a bounty hunter who ends up at the space colony EC-21 Janus after an incident during space portal travel. The hook is that he goes in looking for help to fix his ship and finds only silence, mysteries, and a feeling that something is deeply wrong in that place. The main setting is this colony that is mining a moon called Red Selene, and this adds a very good flavor of industrial science fiction, almost environmental horror, where everything seems functional until it isn't. The proposal also involves exploring the connected worlds of EC-21 Janus, going to Red Selene itself and coming back, while the story unfolds and the layers of horror appear. On the gameplay side, the promise is very direct and honest: kill, loot, and survive, with a focus on searching for items, weapons, and resources, and using them in a combat system that mixes a retro vibe with a more modern touch. The game is also described as an adventure in large environments, with a tone of disturbing adventure, so the expectation is exploration and progression with that weight of survival horror instead of just running forward. What stands out most here is the atmospheric work. The official material talks about dynamic lighting and realistic pixel art visuals precisely to make the solitude more uncomfortable and the suspense more constant. And since the marketing itself insists on horror, love, and truth, it gives the feeling that it's not just jump scares and gore. It's a terror that wants to make you curious and uneasy at the same time. If your thing in Terminator 2D was that intensity that makes you grip the controller tightly, here the bet is on an intensity of tension and exploration. Ranger Commando is an isometric tactical shooter with 80s retro visuals that screams Metal Slug nostalgia, but with a solo dev approach that focuses on fast and chaotic missions. Here, you control a tough ranger infiltrating enemy bases around the world, blowing everything up, freeing hostages, and assassinating officials in randomly generated scenarios that ensure no two runs are the same. It's that vibe of loose police against global organized crime, but with heavy weapons and zero nonsense. The gameplay is pure tactical juice without frills. Top-down isometric, where you plan entries, use light stealth to flank, shoot with pistols, rifles, and grenades, and cause as much chaos as possible across 10 campaign missions in varied locations. No boring roguelike stuff or infinite progression. It's straight to the point, with cover mechanics, precise aiming, and quick decisions that remind you of the pattern mastery Terminator 2D demands on bosses. Perfect for short sessions that turn into marathons when you want to beat it without dying. Visually, the polished 80s pixel art captures that raw essence of old arcades, with detailed sprites of enemies, juicy explosions, and scenarios full of details like barricades and destructible vehicles. The audio reinforces everything with a nostalgic synthwave soundtrack and heavy sound effects that make every shot echo like in the classics, right in line with those who enjoyed the cinematic sound of Terminator 2D in the motorcycle chases. If Terminator 2D won you over with a dense campaign with no fat, Ranger Commando follows the same philosophy. Missions focused on clear objectives: kill the boss, save the hostages, escape, with replayability via procedural generation that forces you to adapt tactics every time. Local or online co-op support with a friend raises the bar for competitive sessions, like who kills more officers, without complicating the core loop. In the end, Ranger Commando is for those who finished Terminator 2D wanting more tactical and explosive 2D action. Wishlist it now on Steam, because this indie has everything to be your next just one more mission addiction that keeps you glued to the screen for hours on end. If you loved Terminator 2D No Fate for the raw sci-fi action and the atmosphere of a desperate war against a relentless alien threat, DarkSwarm is the next game that needs to be on your radar right now. It is a top-down tactical shooter co-op online game where you and up to 3 friends become elite operators hired for suicide missions in zones infested by a mutant alien swarm that adapts tactics in real time. No heroes saving the world. Here, it's pure mercenary work. Complete the contract or die trying, with a cold survival vibe that reminds you of the No Fate from Terminator, only against cosmic bugs that are too smart. The gameplay is a tactical twin-stick shooter with procedurally generated and semi-destructible levels, perfect for those who enjoyed the dense stages of Terminator 2D full of patterns to master. You choose classes like Assault to break enemy lines, Engineer for support tech, Support for resupply, or Infiltrator for stealth kills, and then dive into dark wastelands where the swarm attacks from the shadows, mutates to counter your weapons, and forces you to improvise like in a hardcore arcade. It is intense, with death on demand. Your squad is disposable, and the focus is to extract with the job done, not survive for sport. Visuals and sound deliver a sci-fi horror atmosphere that sticks. Dark pixel art with blinking neons in claustrophobic environments, heavy explosions, and a soundtrack that races the heart just like the motorcycle chases in Terminator 2D. The swarm isn't just a dumb horde. It observes, learns, and counterattacks, creating those moments of panic where one mistake turns into a total wipe, right in line with the challenge that makes you go back to hard mode in Terminator to prove you've mastered it. Compared to Terminator 2D, DarkSwarm swaps linear side-scrolling for open tactical maps, but maintains the essence of action without fat. Quick sessions of 20 to 40 minutes per mission, infinite replayability via procedural gen, and co-op that transforms a solo rush into coordinated chaos with friends. A closed alpha has already taken place on Steam with positive feedback for the intensity, and the devlog shows refinement in enemy mutations and destructibility that elevates the chaos. The mercenary tone is what shines. Without bloated lore, just contracts paid by those who need the impossible, echoing that fragile human resistance against machines in Terminator, but here against a living and adaptable horror. Personally, it's addictive because it punishes collective error, like when the engineer dies early and the squad collapses, forcing you to plan better for the next drop. DarkSwarm is coming to early access for PC via Steam, with plans for a full release and possibly consoles, and if you finish Terminator 2D hungry for more brutal sci-fi 2D in a squad, wishlist it now and get into the alpha if you can. It's going to be that multiplayer that hooks you like Contra co-op, but with alien terror that doesn't forgive. If you loved Terminator for the insane 2D action and the climate of vengeance against a greater threat, Deadliest Pigeon is the game that will make you laugh out loud while exploding everything on screen. A run-and-gun side-scroller with ragdoll physics where you control Albert, a crazed pigeon on a John Wick mission to avenge his dead chick. The premise is pure genius absurdity. Evil humans wiped out his family, and now this bird, armed to the teeth, uses AK-47s, grappling hooks, and grenades to massacre hordes in chaotic scenarios. It's Terminator 2D meets Hotline Miami, but with feathers and hilarious physics that send enemies flying like broken dolls. The gameplay is addictive and direct. Run, jump, shoot, and swing with the hook to traverse levels full of bullets, traps, and giant bosses, all with total destruction and power-ups that turn the pigeon into a flying war machine. If Terminator 2D grabbed you with the mastery of shotgun blasts and moto chases, here the flow is just as fluid, but with ragdoll physics adding layers of comedy. Enemies trip, ricochet off walls, and explode in insane slow-mo. The demo already proves it. It's challenging as hell, punishing errors with quick wipes, but rewarding precision with epic sequences of controlled chaos. Visually, the pixel art is polished and gory, with blood spurting, juicy explosions, and fluid animations that capture the absurdity without losing the aggression. Perfect for those who enjoyed the movie-faithful pixels in Terminator 2D. The sound is another hit. Heavy gunshots, a fast-paced rock and roll soundtrack, and angry pigeon grunts that stick in your head, creating that arcade urgency that makes you go, just one more run. It's not just a meme, it's a polished indie that balances humor with solid mechanics. Compared to Terminator 2D, Deadliest Pigeon swaps machines for caricatured humans and sci-fi for animal revenge, but keeps the essence of a short and dense campaign, with replayability via procedural levels and unlocks of crazy weapons. Without a bloated Metroidvania, it is pure modern arcade. 20 to 40 minute sessions that turn into hours farming perfection, just like the hardcore loop of hard mode in Terminator. Full controller support and mature vibes with constant violence elevate it for an adult audience that wants action without frills. What won me over personally is how it turns rage into fun. You feel the pigeon hating every human on screen, pulling himself with a hook for a shot to the face, and laughing when physics betrays the perfect plan. It is pure catharsis for run-and-gun fans who beat Terminator 2D dreaming of more creative destruction. Made by Rusty Rex and published by Catoptric Games, It arrives in 2026 for PC, with a demo on Steam to test right now. So, if Terminator 2D No Fate left you hungry for more brutal and cinematic 2D, Deadliest Pigeon is the absurd indie that needs your wish list. Download the demo, avenge the chick, and see if this pigeon doesn't become the new king of your late night runs. Pubg Blindspot is one of those spin-offs that take the Pubg brand and throw it into another style. It is a 5v5 military shooter in top-down view with the promise of realistic and fast gunplay like never before in this type of camera. The first thing that grabs my attention is how the game turns vision into a mechanic. There is real-time shared vision with the team, so what you see and what you don't see becomes part of the meta the entire time. This creates a type of tension that is very reminiscent of the feeling of playing a difficult arcade game. It's not just aiming well, it's positioning correctly, anticipating angles, and not giving room for silly mistakes. In terms of game mode, Blindspot revolves heavily around an objective mission like a bomb mission, but with its own identity. The team needs to infiltrate and hack a crypt by installing a decryptor, while the other side tries to defend with blockades and environmental preparation. The delicious detail is that the game openly talks about breaking walls, defenses with tools like grenade launchers and explosive hammers to open routes and create ambushes, which for me is where the top-down view shines. You start thinking of the map as matter, not as a fixed corridor. And then comes what can really make this game addictive: characters, classes with their own weapons and gadgets, including very Pubg things, weapons like MK14, AWM, and P90, and others very tactical mode, like reconnaissance drones, proximity explosives, smoke, and flashbangs to dominate CQB. For those who enjoy that fantasy of mastering the system that Terminator 2D provokes on hard, here the loop seems to be: gain information, deny enemy vision, and attack before they understand what is happening. Regarding availability, it was officially revealed by Krafton/Pubg Studios as the project formerly known as Project Arc, and had a demo on Steam starting February 21st, 2025, right in the Steam Next Fest window. The Steam page also reinforces this idea of dynamic 5v5 military shooting with realistic and fast combat, so you can understand that the focus is really competitive PvP, not a narrative campaign. The reason for recommending Blindspot to those who love Terminator 2D, No Fate, isn't because the games are the same, they aren't, but because both bet on intensity. Matches that require quick reading, clean execution, and that mentality of, you mess up, you pay. If your passion in Terminator 2D was mastering patterns and space under pressure, here the modern version of that is mastering information, angles, and entry timing with the team. And this is a genre shift that might surprise more than many people imagine. Truxton Extreme is the shmup revival promising to give you a high dose of pure adrenaline. An explosive vertical shooter where you pilot ships against grotesque alien invaders in 18 chapters of modern bullet hell chaos. Made by Tetsujin founded by original creator Masahiro Yuge, it updates the 80s classic with jaw-dropping 3D, preserving the iconic design of mechanical insects, tentacles, and colossal bosses that take up the whole screen. I felt in the demo that it is Terminator in space, constant dodging, power-ups flying, and the feeling that one mistake erases everything. The gameplay is old-school Fury with updated firepower. Grab Power Shot for spread bullets, Truxton Beam for continuous laser, Thunder Laser for multiple bolts, or Homing Shot to track targets, all evolving with pickups that turn into X10 medals when maxed out. Without soft checkpoints, it is quick respawn and recovery the hard way, just like the hard mode of Terminator 2D, where you learn patterns or die trying. The demo already made me sweat on stage 1 with fast bullets and EX fire that charges for insane bursts. Adjustable speed, up to 5x Dojin style, and focus mode add technical layers that are addictive for the hardcore. Visually, it is retro-evolved, rendered 3D with sprites faithful to the original, fluid animations of explosions, and nightmare fuel enemies like mechanical serpents and glowing eyes, all wrapped in 8 unique stages that feel like cinematic set pieces. The soundtrack mixes classic remixes with a heavy original OST, echoing the synth rhythm of Terminator in the chases. I paused just to admire bosses that fill the screen with spikes and lasers. Perfect for those who enjoyed dense pixels in Terminator 2D. The narrative comes via an interactive comic book animated by mangaka Junya Inoue, telling the saga of Ash, Bergamot, and Kriya defending Earth. It's not bloated lore, but episodes that connect stages without breaking the arcade flow. Modes range from Heartstarter, easy for newbies, to arcade, hardcore without mercy, plus endless looping for score chasing, just like the replay value of farming perfection in Terminator. The recently announced co-op is the Extra Shine, duo mode where allies revive each other and redirect shots via ship frames, transforming a solo rush into coordinated chaos. Imagine Terminator 2D local co-op, but vertical and with tactical revives. For me, Truxton Extreme captures what Terminator 2D does best: intense brevity that becomes an obsession, where half an hour of mastery is worth entire nights. Wishlist now for PS5 and PC in 2026. Download the demo and feel the white-hot thrill of evolved root shmups without losing the soul. Visegunne is the mecha shmup that promises to give you that same power rush. A single-player shoot-'em-up where you pilot a combat mech fueled by a human soul to detonate enemies in narrative missions full of over-the-top effects. Inspired by 80s and 90s anime like Gundam, it mixes insane bullet patterns with a vast arsenal of evolving weapons, creating sequences of destruction that look like sci-fi blockbuster scenes. I saw the trailer and already imagined farming bosses like in Terminator's hard mode, only vertical and with giant mechs. The gameplay focuses on classic shoot-'em-up with a mecha twist. Dodge dense bullets, grab power-ups for lasers, missiles, and soul-powered bursts, all in linear but dense stages that prioritize the pure satisfaction of defeat and explode. No fillers, it is direct like Terminator 2D, short and intense missions with integrated narrative that pulls you into the lore without pausing the action, like fluid cutscenes between waves of enemies. The dev emphasizes visual spectacle, explosions that fill the screen, crazy particles, and animations that make every kill feel epic. Visually, it is gorgeous pixel art with detailed mechs and vibrant sci-fi backgrounds that capture that evolved retro anime vibe, just like the faithful T800 pixels in Terminator, but on a colossal mecha scale. Over-the-top effects are the heart. Slow-mo on bursts, bullet trails, and chain reaction destruction that stick to the retina, perfect for those who pause Terminator to admire shotgun blasts on the T1000. Partial controller support ensures that root arcade flow. The narrative is what elevates it beyond the generic shmup. You are a soul-powered mech pilot in a galactic war, with missions that tell a story via dialogues and in-game events without breaking the rhythm. Reminds you of the No Fate from Terminator, but with mecha drama where your soul powers up the mech. Replayability comes from varied weapons and score chasing, transforming a dense campaign into an addictive loop like farming S ranks in Terminator. Personally, Visegunne got me because it captures what Terminator 2D does best: brevity that turns into obsession, where half an hour of mastery makes you come back for perfection, now with a mecha arsenal that rewards experimentation. So if Terminator 2D No Fate left you wanting more brutal and fluid 2D sci-fi, wishlist Visegunne now. It is the shmup that transforms pilot against invasion into visual catharsis, the kind you beat and immediately plan the no-hit run that same night.